My name is Chen Yuan, the live-in son-in-law of the Xiao family. They all say I'm trash, a worthless bum who does nothing but eat. Even the Xiao family's dogs live with more dignity than I do. My wife, Xiao Lingxi, a favored daughter of heaven, sees me the same way. She never shares my bed and won't even deign to speak to me, until the day she was pushed to the brink and awakened a system. From then on, her life took off. Her cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. Concocting elixirs became second nature, and all who had once bullied her were crushed under her heel. She became the hero of the family, the hope of the sect. Everyone said it was her destiny, a sign of heaven's favor, and she believed it. But she gradually discovered that the quests issued by the system were growing stranger and stranger. From make a meal for Chen Yuan, to hold Chen Yuan's hand for the time it takes an incense stick to burn, and then to swear an oath of loyalty to Chen Yuan in your heart. She was confused and resistant, but the rewards for completing each quest were too great to refuse. She started to watch me secretly in the dead of night, hoping to find some clue on this good-for-nothing that I was. But my days consisted of nothing but sweeping floors, chopping firewood, and staring into space, as calm as a pool of stagnant water. In the end, when she stood at the very peak of the world, looking down upon all creation, she discovered that she had long been a puppet, controlled by invisible strings. Trembling, she turned to look back at me, still sweeping fallen leaves in the courtyard. In that moment, she understood. There was no destiny. There was no system. From beginning to end, there was only ever me. My name is Chen Yuan. Everyone in the Xiao family calls me trash. I've been hearing it for 3 years. Today is the birthday banquet for the old matriarch of the Xiao family. I'm not qualified to sit at the head table. My place is in a corner of the courtyard, at a table with the servants. No, it can't even be called the servants' table. They set out a small, separate table just for me, right under the crooked locust tree. The steward said that way I wouldn't be an eyesore. The food consisted of cold leftovers. When the steward brought it over, he slammed the plate down on the table. "Eat, you good-for-nothing," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but the servants at the surrounding tables heard it. They let out a burst of suppressed laughter. I said nothing. I picked up my chopsticks and took a piece of meat that had already gone cold. The meat was tough, with a greasy, rancid taste. I chewed slowly. The courtyard was lively. Bursts of flattery and laughter drifted over from the main hall. Those sounds had nothing to do with me. A yellow dog ran to my feet. It was the Xiao family's guard dog, named Huang. It wagged its tail, staring eagerly at the bowl in my hands. I picked up the piece of meat and held it to its mouth. It sniffed, licked it once, then turned its head away in disgust and ran off. It would rather gnaw on bones thrown away by the servants than eat my meat. The surrounding laughter grew louder. Look, even a dog despises him. I really don't know what the eldest miss was thinking, letting a thing like him into the family. Hush, keep your voice down, in case the eldest miss hears. The eldest miss they spoke of was Xiao Lingxi, my wife, in name only. 3 years ago, I married into the Xiao family. On our wedding night, she made me sleep on the floor. She said, "If you touch me, I'll kill you." For 3 years, I have slept on the floor. In all that time, we have exchanged fewer than 10 sentences. Halfway through the birthday banquet, the sound of an argument suddenly erupted from the main hall. It was very loud. People from the Zhao family were here. The Zhao family was another great family in Qingyang City, and they had always wanted to annex our Xiao family. Today, they had come to force a marriage. The Zhao family's eldest young master, Zhao Long, had taken a fancy to Xiao Lingxi. I put down my chopsticks and stood up. I looked toward the main hall. Through the window, I could see Xiao Lingxi standing in the center of the hall. She was dressed in white, her back ramrod straight. She was very beautiful, like a lotus on a snow-capped mountain, cold and aloof. Zhao Long stood before her, a lecherous smile on his face. "Lingxi, marry me. If our two families join forces, all of Qingyang City will be ours. In your dreams." Xiao Lingxi's voice was cold, tinged with anger. refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Zhao Long's face darkened. Don't you know the state your Xiao family is in? In another 3 months, your spirit mine will be depleted. When that happens, what will you use to support this whole large family? My wanting to marry you is an honor I'm bestowing upon you. The Xiao family's old matriarch sat in the main seat, her face ashen, not saying a word. The first uncle of the Xiao family, who was also Xiao Lingxi's father, sighed. Lingxi, why don't you just agree to it? Father. Xiao Lingxi stared at her father in disbelief. You want me to marry this beast? Insolence. The first uncle slammed his hand on the table. What's wrong with making a contribution to the family? Are we supposed to just stand by and watch our Xiao family be destroyed? Besides, you've already been married once. Although that piece of trash. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the courtyard as if looking for me. Although that piece of trash was nothing, you are, after all, a woman on her second marriage. For young Master Zhao, not to disdain you is a blessing you've cultivated over several lifetimes. I saw Xiao Lingxi's body sway. Her face was as white as paper. Despair, humiliation, every emotion was written on her cold, clear face. Zhao Long's smile grew more triumphant. He reached out, trying to touch Xiao Lingxi's face. Good little sister, be obedient and come home with big brother. Get away. Xiao Lingxi slapped his hand away. Bitch! Enraged, Zhao Long slapped her back, striking Xiao Lingxi hard across the face. The crisp sound echoed throughout the courtyard. Everyone fell silent. Blood trickled from the corner of Xiao Lingxi's mouth where she had been hit. She clutched her face, her eyes filled with tears, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. I would rather die than marry you. Good. You got backbone. Zhao Long sneered. Today, I'll show you the meaning of a life worse than death. As he spoke, a powerful aura erupted from him. He was a cultivator at the 7th level of Qi refinement. As for Xiao Lingxi, she was a genius 3 years ago, but now, due to a mishap in her cultivation, her progress had stalled at the 5th level of Qi refinement. She was no match for Zhao Long at all. Zhao Long closed in step by step. Xiao Lingxi retreated step by step. Of the Xiao family, not one dared to step forward. They all kept their heads down. I stood under the locust tree, watching quietly, as if watching a play that had nothing to do with me. No one noticed me. In this family, I was an invisible person. Zhao Long grabbed Xiao Lingxi's hair and slammed her hard on the ground. He raised his foot, about to stomp down on Xiao Lingxi's dantian. This was to cripple her. Xiao Lingxi closed her eyes. 2 lines of clear tears finally slid down. Just then, I moved. I just took a step forward. Then, I picked up a pebble at my feet. A very small one, about the size of a fingernail. I looked at Zhao Long's foot. Gently, I flicked the pebble out. No sound. No fluctuation of spiritual energy. Like an ordinary person casually tossing a pebble. In the main hall, Zhao Long's descending foot suddenly slipped, as if he had stepped on something greasy. His whole body lost its balance, and he fell face first to the ground in an extremely wretched posture. 2 of his front teeth were knocked out. His mouth was full of blood. Everyone was stunned. Zhao Long himself was bewildered. He scrambled up, spat out a mouthful of bloody foam, and looked around wildly. Who sneak attacked me? No one answered. Everyone thought it was just an accident. Only Xiao Lingxi. Lying on the ground, she turned her head, her gaze passing through the crowd to meet mine. She saw me standing under a tree. In my hand, it seemed I was still clutching something. There was a hint of confusion in her eyes, and a flicker of inquiry, one she herself hadn't even noticed. Expressionless, I released my hand. My palm was empty. Then, I turned and walked back to my small table. I picked up the bowl of rice that had grown completely cold, and continued to eat. Zhao Long's farce eventually fizzled out. He had taken a bad fall, even losing a front tooth. Feeling he'd lost face, he spat a few harsh words and left with his men. The birthday banquet, too, ended hastily. At night, as usual, I slept on the floor in Xiao Lingxi's room. The cold wooden floor made my bones ache. I was used to it. Xiao Lingxi lay in bed, tossing and turning. I knew she wasn't asleep. The events of the day had been a great blow to her. Her father's coercion, the family's indifference, Zhao Long's humiliation. This proud and aloof woman, her heart must have been bleeding. In the darkness, I could hear her suppressed sobs. So soft, but I could hear them. I lay with my eyes closed, completely still, like a stone. After a long time, the sobbing stopped. All that remained in the room was the sound of her breathing, now grown steady. I sensed she had fallen asleep. Just then, a faint blue light, one only I could see, spilled from my fingertip. Like a tiny snake, it drifted silently toward the bed. Then, it burrowed into the space between Xiao Lingxi's eyebrows. Her body trembled slightly, her brow furrowed as well, as if having an unsettling dream. The next morning, when I woke up, she was already sitting at the dressing table, different from usual. She wasn't putting on makeup, just quietly watching herself in the mirror. There was a strange light in her eyes, like excitement, yet also disbelief. I silently rolled up my bedding and stuffed it into the cabinet in the corner. Then I prepared to go out to the courtyard to chop firewood. This was one of my daily chores. Stop, she suddenly spoke. It was the first time in 3 months that she had spoken to me first. I stopped and turned to look at her. Is something wrong? My voice was flat. She watched me in the mirror. Her gaze was complex. There was scrutiny, suspicion, and a trace of an emotion I couldn't read. Yesterday, was that you? She asked. I knew what she was asking about. The matter of Zhao Long's fall. No. My answer was blunt. I'm just a good-for-nothing. I can't do anything. She stared at me for a long time, as if trying to find a flaw in my expression. But my face had long since grown numb. It showed no superfluous expression. Finally, she averted her gaze. Leave. Her voice had returned to its usual iciness. I said nothing more, turned, and left. The air in the courtyard was fresh. I picked up the axe and started chopping firewood. With a single blow, the log split open. A clean split. I chopped firewood all morning. Around noon, a maid came running over. Young master, the eldest miss wants to see you in her study. The maid's tone held unconcealed disdain. But my face had long since grown numb. It showed no superfluous expression. Finally, she averted her gaze. Here, even the maids looked down on me. I put down the axe and brushed the wood shavings from my hands. I went to Xiao Lingxi's study. She rarely let me into her study. She said the stench of poverty on me would soil her books. I pushed the door open and went inside. She was sitting at her desk, holding a book. But her attention, clearly, was not on the book. In front of her, there seemed to be a transparent screen of light. Only I could see the lines of blue data streams reflected in her pupils. Her expression was both focused and feverish, like a gambler who had just found a priceless treasure. It was only when she heard me enter that she looked away. The screen of light also vanished in an instant. She looked up at me. Come here. I walked to her desk. On the desk was a bowl of rice and 2 side dishes. It was hot, steaming with a fragrant aroma. Eat it, she said, her tone in order. I was surprised. In 3 years, she had never cooked for me. She even found the sight of me eating filthy. What was with her today? I didn't ask. I picked up the chopsticks, sat down, and ate. It tasted pretty good. 100 times better than the spoiled rice the housekeeper gave me. I ate quickly. She just watched me. The look in her eyes was strange, as if looking at a test subject. After I finished eating, the screen of light I could see in the air before her flashed again. A line of small text appeared. Beginner quest. Cook a meal for Chun Yuan. Quest status completed. Quest reward. 1 marrow washing pill. A crystal clear pill appeared out of thin air in her palm. It gave off a faint medicinal fragrance. I saw Xiao Lingxi's eyes instantly light up. That was a real marrow washing pill, a treasure that could cleanse the meridians, purify the marrow, and enhance one's cultivation talent. In Xingyang City, such a thing had a price but no market. She was so excited her hands trembled slightly. She clutched the pill and looked up at me. The shock in her eyes was unconcealable. It seemed she finally understood why this was happening. She looked at me, as if looking at a human-shaped treasure chest. Yup. She opened her mouth, as if she wanted to ask something. But in the end, she said nothing at all. She just waved her hand. You can go. From now on, come here to eat at this time every day. I nodded. I turned and left. As I reached the door, I heard her mutter to herself behind me in a very low voice. So, this is how the system is used. Her voice held a trace of irrepressible excitement and greed. An imperceptible curve touched the corner of my mouth. The fish had taken the bait. From that day on, the quality of my meals skyrocketed. Every day at noon, Xiaolingxi would punctually call me to the study to eat. The variety of dishes grew richer and richer. It went from 2 dishes in a soup to 4 dishes in a soup. Sometimes there was even the meat of spirit beasts. I ate, and she watched. Every time I finished eating, things would appear out of thin air beside her. Pills, cultivation techniques, spirit stones. All were treasures that cultivators dreamed of. Her cultivation level also began to advance by leaps and bounds. In just half a month, she broke through from the 5th to the 6th layer of qi refining. This was something that would have been completely unthinkable before. The entire Xiao family was in an uproar. They all said that the eldest miss, after a long period of accumulation, had finally broken through her bottleneck. It was a most auspicious omen for the rise of the Xiao family. The head of the Xiao family, my father-in-law, was grinning from ear to ear. The way he looked at Xiaolingxi was no longer as if she were a commodity to be traded, but a rare and priceless treasure. Xiaolingxi's status rose with the tide. By extension, my own status also seemed to have risen a little. The butler no longer dared to give me spoiled food. When the servants saw me, though they were still disdainful, they at least no longer dared to call me trash to my face. I knew this was all because of Xiaolingxi, or rather, because of her system. She had gotten a taste of the benefits, and had also figured out this system's pattern. As long as a quest was related to me, the reward was exceptionally generous. And so, the quest began to escalate. Daily quest: wash Chen Yuan's clothes once. Reward: heart-cleansing art, Xian rank, low-grade technique. That day, I had just placed my dirty clothes into a basin when Xiaolingxi walked in. She glanced at the clothes in the basin and frowned. Her eyes filled with unconcealed disgust. But she still picked up the basin. Give it to me, she said. I didn't move. I'll wash them myself. I told you to give it to me. She sounded impatient. It seemed as if saying even one more word to me was an insult to her. I let go. Carrying the basin, she went to the well in the courtyard. I watched her back. A young lady whose hands had never known a day of hard labor. Clumsily, she scrubbed my clothes. Water splashed onto the hem of her skirt. She was completely oblivious. Her attention was entirely on the mission reward. That night, she cultivated a new technique. Spiritual energy surged around her. She was another step closer to the 7th level of qi refinement. A few more days passed. A new mission arrived. Side mission: hold Chen Yuan's hand for the time it takes an incense stick to burn. Reward: 3 third-grade qi-gathering pills. That afternoon, I was basking in the sun in the courtyard. Xiaolingxi walked up to me. The sunlight stretched her shadow long. She looked at me, her lips moving slightly, as if she found it hard to speak. Finally, she held out her hand. Give me your hand. Her hand was very fair and slender, like a piece of fine mutton fat jade. I gave her my hand. My hand was rough, covered in calluses from chopping firewood, a stark contrast to hers. She held my hand. Her body stiffened for a moment. Her hand was cold, but mine was warm. She flinched as if burned, wanted to pull her hand back. But she resisted, for the sake of those 3 qi-gathering pills. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn is a long time. Neither of us spoke. The courtyard was very quiet, only the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. I could feel her palm gradually begin to sweat. I didn't know if it was from nervousness or something else. Time was up. She swiftly released her hand, as if flinging away something dirty. 3 pills appeared in her other hand. She didn't spare me a single glance, just turned and walked away. Her steps were a little hurried. I looked at my own hand. The warmth of her palm still seemed to linger on it, and a trace of a faint fragrance. It was the incense she wore. I began to feel that things were becoming interesting. This arrogant woman, for the sake of power, could set aside her own dignity. I was very curious. Where exactly was her bottom line? And so I gave the system a new command. That night, I had just laid my bedding on the floor. Xiaolingxi's voice came from the bed. "You come sleep up here." I was stunned for a moment. I looked up at her. She was on her side, her back to me. I couldn't see her expression, but I could hear a slight tremble in her voice, and a trace of humiliation. I saw a glowing screen lit up in the air in front of her. Hidden quest. Unique share a bed with Chen Yuan. Reward. 1 foundation establishment pill. A foundation establishment pill. A divine medicine that could help a qi refining cultivator break through to the foundation establishment stage. A single pill was enough to drive every family in Qingyang City into a frenzy. It was a temptation she could not refuse. I didn't move. "I'm used to sleeping on the floor," I said. "I told you to get up here." Her voice rose sharply, laced with an anger born of humiliation. I was silent for a moment. Then I stood up and walked to the bedside. The bed was large and soft. It carried her unique scent. I lay on the outer edge, keeping a person's width between us. Between us, it was as if there was a chasm. The room fell silent once more, but I knew that neither of us was asleep. I could feel her beside me, her body as taut as a drawn bow. Her breathing, too, was a little quickened. I slowly closed my eyes. In the darkness, I could see the foundation establishment pill appear out of thin air in her palm. She was gripping it tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force. She got what she wanted. I also got what I wanted. Everything was going according to my plan. This game was only just beginning. Ever since obtaining the foundation establishment pill, Xiaolingxi had entered seclusion. She was impatient to make a breakthrough. For 10 whole days, she did not emerge from her room. I was glad for the peace and quiet. My days were spent chopping wood, sweeping the floors, eating, and sleeping. Life was no different than before. On the 11th day, a powerful fluctuation of spiritual energy erupted from the room. It could be felt throughout the entire Xiao family estate. Foundation establishment stage. Xiaolingxi had successfully established her foundation. The Xiao family's eldest uncle was the first to rush over. He stood in the courtyard, sensing the aura, his face flushed red with excitement. "Heaven bless our Xiao family. Heaven bless our Xiao family." He threw his head back and laughed. Soon, the elders of the Xiao family had all arrived. They gathered in the courtyard, talking over one another. On their faces, they all wore looks of shared honor and joy. A 20-year-old foundation establishment cultivator. In the entire history of Qingyang City, there were few others like her. The Xiao family was about to rise. The door opened with a creak. Xiaolingxi walked out. Her entire disposition was completely different from before. If before she was cold and detached, now she was sharp, like a treasured sword drawn from its sheath. Wherever her gaze passed, no one dared to meet her eyes. She frowned upon seeing so many people in the courtyard, but she didn't say anything. Her gaze swept across the crowd. Finally, it landed on me in the corner, chopping firewood. Our gazes met in midair. The look in her eyes was complicated. It was no longer simple disgust and contempt. There was something else mixed in: scrutiny, apprehension, and a hint of confusion. She must be very conflicted right now. On one hand, relying on the benefits given by the system, she had obtained the power she had always dreamed of. On the other hand, she must have also sensed that something was wrong. This system was too deeply bound to a good-for-nothing like me, so deep that it made her uneasy. A smart person wouldn't like this feeling of being led by the nose. First, Uncle Xiao stepped forward, his face wreathed in smiles. "Lingxi, congratulations on successfully establishing your foundation. You truly are the pride of our Xiao family." "Father," Xiaolingxi replied faintly. I'm hungry. Yes, yes, of course. I'll have the kitchen prepare at once. We'll hold a celebratory feast for you. First, Uncle Xiao rubbed his hands together, overcome with excitement. That won't be necessary. Xiao Lingxi cut him off. Just have him make me a bowl of noodles. As she spoke, she lifted her chin in my direction. Everyone's gaze focused on me. There was surprise and confusion. First, Uncle Xiao was even more stunned. Lingxi, what did you say? Have this good-for-nothing cook for you. He's not a good-for-nothing. Xiao Lingxi spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. Xiao Lingxi spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. His name is Chun Yuan. The courtyard fell silent in an instant. You could hear a pin drop. In 3 years, this was the first time I had heard my name from her lips. Eldest Uncle Xiao opened his mouth, as if to say something more. But Xiao Lingxi paid him no further mind. She walked straight toward me. She stopped in front of me. Do you know how to make noodles? She asked. I do. I nodded. Then go make them. After she spoke, she turned and went into the house, leaving a group of stunned Xiao family members in the courtyard. I put down the axe and went to the kitchen. The people in the kitchen all gave me strange looks. They didn't dare to offend the current Xiao Lingxi, so they could only take out their resentment on me. A grown man relying on a woman. What kind of man is that? He's nothing but a freeloader. The sour, biting remarks kept coming. I ignored them. Mixing the dough, kneading it, rolling it out. My movements were practiced. I used to be a cook. Actually, the noodles were ready. A very plain bowl of Yangchun noodles. I brought the noodles to Xiao Lingxi's room. She was sitting at the table, staring out the window, lost in thought. I placed the bowl in front of her. Eat. She came to her senses, looking at the noodles before her. Clear broth, green scallions, white noodles. Simple, but the aroma was intoxicating. She picked up her chopsticks, lifted a mouthful of noodles, and put them in her mouth. Slowly, she chewed. Then, her eyes lit up. Delicious. Her praise was from the heart. I said nothing. You. She looked up at me. What did you do before? A cook. I answered truthfully. She fell silent. It seemed she had not expected that answer. A cook. A worthless, live-in son-in-law. Yet he was tied to her greatest secret and her fated opportunity. All of this was too bizarre. The Zhao family is coming in 3 days to propose marriage, she said suddenly. Zhao Long, his father, the patriarch of the Zhao family, is coming in person with his men. Are they that determined this time? Yes. Xiao Lingxi's gaze grew cold. They don't know I've already reached the foundation establishment stage. They think the Xiao family is still the same old pushover. What do you plan to do? I asked. In 3 days, I will let them know who the true master of Qingyang City is. Her voice was filled with confidence. Her foundation establishment cultivation gave her all the confidence she needed. She looked at me. For these next 3 days, don't wander off. Just stay here in my courtyard. Why? No reason. She averted her gaze, picked up her bowl, and continued to eat her noodles. I just feel more at ease when you're here. I looked at her, watching the side of her face as she lowered her head to eat. I knew she wasn't at ease. She was afraid. She was afraid that this quest trigger, would disappear. Before she could completely resolve the trouble with the Zhao family, she needed me. She needed the system I had. I smiled and said nothing. It seemed my fish could no longer leave my hook. What's more, she herself was slowly starting to wrap the fishing line around her own neck. How interesting. 3 days passed in a flash. During these 3 days, Xiao Lingxi did not go into seclusion again. She spent most of her time in the courtyard, sometimes practicing her sword, sometimes reading a book. But from time to time, her attention would drift over to me. When I chopped firewood, she would watch. When I swept the floor, she would watch. When I sat under the eaves, dazing off, she would watch too. The look in her eyes grew more and more complex. I could sense the countless questions swirling in her mind. But she was very patient and didn't ask a single word. She probably felt the time wasn't right yet. Or she was waiting to slowly interrogate me after the matter with the Zhao family was settled. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, The people from the Zhao family arrived. They came in great force. The patriarch of the Zhao family, Zhao Tianxiong, led the group himself. Following behind him were a dozen or so masters from the Zhao family. Each one had a steady air about them, clearly not people to be trifled with. Zhao Long stood beside his father, his face wrapped in bandages, his eyes venomously scanning the crowd. When he saw Xiao Lingxi, that venom turned into naked greed. The first uncle of the Xiao family, along with all the elders, received them in the main hall. The atmosphere was very oppressive. I was not qualified to enter the main hall. Xiao Lingxi didn't let me enter either. She had me stay in her courtyard. I sat on the stone bench in the courtyard. I could hear the voices coming from the direction of the main hall. Zhao Tianxiong's voice was full and resonant, carrying an overbearing tone that brooked no argument. Brother Xiao, I won't waste words. I came today for one thing, to have your niece, Lingxi, marry my son. The Xiao family's first uncle laughed dryly. Brother Zhao, a matter as important as marriage requires the consent of the children themselves. Willing, Zhao Tianxiong sneered. A sullied woman who has been married before. What right does she have to be unwilling? That our Zhao family is willing to take her is a great honor for your Xiao family. The words were harsh, but I heard only silence from the Xiao family. No one dared to object. Today, you must agree, whether you want or not. Zhao Tianxiong's voice was filled with menace. I'll give you two choices. 1. Lingxi marries into my family, and our two families will be joined by marriage. 2. Your Xiao family will be wiped from the face of Qingyang City today. As his voice fell, a powerful pressure emanated from the main hall. Foundation Establishment Stage. Zhao Tianxiong was also a Foundation Establishment cultivator. The breathing of the Xiao family members grew rapid. They hadn't expected Zhao Tianxiong to have broken through as well. 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators. How could they possibly fight this? It was over. This time, the Xiao family was truly finished. An atmosphere of despair began to spread. I have a third option. A clear, cold voice rang out. It was Xiao Lingxi. Somehow, she had already reached the entrance of the main hall. Step by step, she walked inside. All eyes were focused on her. Zhao Tianxiong watched her, his eyes narrowing. Oh, let's hear it. The third option. Xiao Lingxi walked to the center of the hall and stopped. Is for your Zhao family to be wiped from the face of Qingyang City today. As her voice fell, the hall erupted in an uproar. Zhao Long was the first to laugh out loud. Ha ha! Xiao Lingxi, have you gone mad? With what are you going to wipe out our Zhao family? With that 5th level qi condensation cultivation of yours. Who told you I was at the 5th level of qi refining? Xiao Lingxi looked at him coldly. The next second, an aura, more powerful and more refined than Zhao Tianxiong's, burst forth from her. Foundation Establishment, and not the initial stage. It was the aura of mid-foundation establishment. The entire hall fell deathly silent. The smile on Zhao Tianxiong's face froze. He stared at Xiao Lingxi in disbelief. You've reached Foundation Establishment too? This is impossible. Just over 10 days ago, you were only at the 5th level of qi refining. Zhao Long let out a sharp cry. The members of the Xiao family were all stunned as well. They had only known that Xiao Lingxi had reached Foundation Establishment, but they had no idea she was already at the mid-Foundation Establishment stage. What kind of cultivation speed was this? A monster. Simply a monster. The Xiao family's first uncle came to his senses, wild joy surging through his heart. He shot to his feet, pointing at Zhao Tianxiong. Zhao Tianxiong, what do you have to say for yourself now? You want to annihilate my Xiao family? In your dreams. The situation was instantly reversed. Zhao Tianxiong's expression turned so grim it seemed water could drip from it. He stared fixedly at Xiao Lingxi. Fine, just fine. What a Xiao family. You've hidden your strength well. He gritted his teeth. But do you really think a single mid-foundation establishment cultivator can save your Xiao family? He suddenly clapped his hands. From behind him, another black-robed figure emerged. The figure was completely enveloped in a black robe, their face obscured. but the aura he exuded was cold and sinister. He was, shockingly, also a Foundation establishment cultivator, two in the early Foundation establishment stage. The Zhao family was actually hiding a Foundation establishment expert. For the Xiao family, the hope that had just kindled was instantly extinguished. 2 against 1. No matter how much of a genius Xiao Lingxi was, she couldn't possibly face 2 Foundation establishment cultivators at once. A triumphant smile returned to Zhao Tianxiong's face. Niece Lingxi, do you still want to choose the third path now? Xiao Lingxi's expression turned grave. She, too, had never expected the Zhao family to have another trump card. Just then, a cold, mechanical voice sounded in her mind. Emergency mission triggered. Repel the Zhao family. Mission requirement. Within the time it takes for 1 incense stick to burn, make all members of the Zhao family get out of the Xiao estate. Mission reward. Profound rank. High-grade sword technique. Flowing cloud, 13 swords. Penalty for failure. Cultivation will regress by 1 major realm. Xiao Lingxi's pupils contracted sharply. A penalty for failure. Cultivation regressing by a major realm? That meant she would fall directly from the Foundation establishment stage back to the Qi refining stage. No, she absolutely could not accept it. The power she had fought so hard to obtain, she could not lose it. But how could she win? They had 2 Foundation establishment cultivators. She was just one. Subconsciously, she turned and glanced in the direction of the courtyard, as if the answer she needed was in that direction. In the courtyard, I was sitting on a stone stool. In my hand, I held a wooden stick doodling something on the ground. Like a bored child, I seemed to feel her gaze, so I lifted my head and glanced in her direction. Then I smiled at her. A very faint smile. I don't know why. Seeing my smile, Xiao Lingxi's panicked heart suddenly settled. She took a deep breath and turned her head to look at Zhao Tianxiong once more. There was no longer any panic in her eyes, only an icy battle intent. Enough talk. She slowly drew the long sword from her waist. Its tip pointed straight at Zhao Tianxiong. Let's fight. The battle was on the verge of erupting. Zhao Tianxiong and the black-robed figure beside him exchanged a glance. They both moved at once. One from the left, one from the right. They closed in on Xiao Lingxi in a pincer attack. Both were Foundation establishment cultivators, their speed like 2 flashes of lightning. Lingxi, be careful. The Xiao family's first uncle cried out. The other members of the Xiao family also clenched their fists nervously. Their palms were slick with sweat. Xiao Lingxi stood her ground, unmoving. Her expression was calm. Just as the 2 were about to reach her, she moved. With a flick of her wrist, the long sword traced a flourish. A very simple opening move. But when she performed it, it carried an ineffable grace. As if this single sword stroke contained a profound truth of the universe. Being a crisp sound, her sword precisely parried Zhao Tianxiong's fist. Simultaneously, her body twisted at an incredible angle, dodging the black-robed man's sneak attack. The entire process was as fluid as flowing water. Not a single wasted motion. Both Zhao Tianxiong and the black-robed man uttered a soft sound of surprise. They had never expected Xiao Lingxi's movement technique to be so exquisite. She's got some skill. Zhao Tianxiong snorted coldly. But you can't win by dodging alone. His assault grew fiercer. The wind from his fists howled, carrying immense power. The black-robed man also struck again, countless fine black needles shooting from his sleeves at treacherous angles, sealing off all of Xiao Lingxi's paths of retreat. Xiao Lingxi's situation looked perilous, but her face remained devoid of any panic. Her feet shifted and weaved within the smallest of spaces. Her longsword would thrust, flick, cleave, or sweep upward. Every strike was perfectly timed, always managing to neutralize their attacks at the most critical moment. She was like a lone skiff in a stormy, raging sea, seemingly about to capsize at any moment. Yet she always remained steady atop the crest of the waves. In the courtyard, I lowered the wooden stick in my hand, watching the battle in the main hall. I could see into Xiao Lingxi's mind. That system interface was flashing frantically. Detected host encountering a fatal attack. Activating combat assist mode. Analyzing enemy attack trajectory. Optimal evasion route has been planned. Enemy weakness locked on. Coordinates 34-112. Host, please attack this point with full force. Line after line of prompts appeared in her mind. All she had to do was follow the prompts. Like a marionette, a puppet that possessed immense power. Everyone in the main hall was stunned. All they could see was Xiao Lingxi fighting two opponents at once. Not only was she not at a disadvantage, but she seemed to grow stronger as the fight went on. Her swordsmanship grew faster and more profound. At first, she was merely on the defensive. Gradually, she began to counterattack. Flowing cloud sword, first form, wind rises. She cried out softly. A flash of sword light, like a gentle breeze, swept past Zhao Tianxiong's side. Zhao Tianxiong hastily retreated, but he was a step too late. The clothes on his side were sliced open. A line of blood appeared. He was wounded. How is this possible? Zhao Tianxiong's face was filled with horror. He hadn't seen how that strike was delivered at all. It was too fast. Second form, cloud surge. Xiao Lingxi's sword momentum changed once again. The light from her sword became dense, like layers upon layers of clouds, enveloping the black-robed man. The black-robed man let out a strange cry and tried to break through. But no matter which direction he charged, he was forced back by the endless sword light. He felt as if he had fallen into a mire, sinking deeper and deeper. In a moment of carelessness, the sword's tip swept across his shoulder, drawing a spray of blood beads. The tables had completely turned. Now it was Xiao Lingxi alone, overpowering two Foundation establishment cultivators. The members of the Xiao family had gone from shock to wild elation. Young mistress is mighty. Kill them. Rid our Xiao family of this scourge. The cheers rose in waves. Zhao Long stood to the side, his face ashen with fear. He was shaking like a sieve. He simply couldn't understand. Why, after only a few days, had Xiao Lingxi become so powerful? This defied all common sense. She was a monster, 13th style, immortal from beyond the heavens. Xiao Lingxi's voice rang out again. This time, her voice carried a resolute killing intent. She and the sword in her hand seemed to merge as one, transforming into a sky-shattering rainbow of light that pierced toward Zhao Tianxiong. This sword strike was unavoidable. It was the epitome of both speed and beauty, like a meteor streaking across the night sky, brilliant and lethal. Zhao Tianxiong's pupils contracted to pinpricks. He felt the breath of death upon him. He wanted to dodge, but his body couldn't keep up with his thoughts. He could only watch, wide-eyed, as the sword light loomed ever larger before him. Stop! Just as the tip of the sword was about to pierce his heart, the black-robed man suddenly let out a sharp cry. He violently tore off the hood on his head, revealing a face that no one from the Xiao family could have expected. Second Uncle Xiao, the biological younger brother of the Xiao family's first uncle. Xiao Lingxi's second uncle. Everyone was stunned. Xiao Lingxi's sword also stopped in midair. The tip of the sword was less than an inch from Zhao Tianxiong's heart. The sharp sword energy had already pierced his skin. A drop of fresh blood trickled slowly down the sword's tip. Second uncle? Xiao Lingxi's voice carried a trace of a tremor. What? Second Uncle Xiao, the man in the black robe, revealed a savage smile. Because I'm not willing to accept it. He pointed to the Xiao family's first uncle and roared. On what grounds was he born the eldest son, the future head of the family? How am I inferior to him? Just because I was born a few years later? I've worked diligently for the Xiao family for decades, but in the end, I get nothing. So, I cooperated with the Zhao family. As long as we bring him down, I will be the new head of the Xiao family. A farce of internal family strife. Very cliché, but also very realistic. The Xiao family's first uncle trembled with rage. Rebellious son, you rebellious son. He pointed at second Uncle Xiao, too furious to speak. What's the use of saying all this now? Zhao Tianxiong, having narrowly escaped with his life, wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He looked at Xiao Lingxi and sneered. Xiao Lingxi, do you still want to kill me now? If you kill us, your second uncle will be branded a traitor for colluding with outsiders and betraying the family. Is that a crime he can afford to bear? If our Zhao family is finished, your second uncle won't survive either. This was a blatant threat, using the life of her second uncle to threaten Xiao Lingxi. Xiao Lingxi's hand, gripping her sword, hesitated. On one side was the enemy of her family. On the other, her own uncle. Although he had betrayed the family, blood was, after all, thicker than water. How was she to choose? Just then, my voice drifted in from the courtyard, calm and unhurried. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn is almost up. My voice was not loud, but in the silent hall, it sounded exceptionally clear. All eyes turned to the doorway. They saw me leaning against the doorframe. On my face was a hint of a lazy smile. You waste. Do you have any right to speak here? Zhao Long was the first to react, roaring at me. Get out. I ignored him. My gaze was fixed only on Xiao Lingxi. Fail the mission, and your cultivation will regress by one major realm. I said softly, do you want to revert to that qi refining stage, where you could be bullied by anyone? My words struck Xiao Lingxi's heart like a heavy hammer. Her body trembled violently. That's right, the mission, and the mission's penalty. How could she lose the power she had fought so hard to gain? Return to the qi refining stage. No, that would be worse than death. That powerlessness, that despair, she never wanted to experience it again. Her gaze became resolute again. No, it became ice cold, like a block of ice that hadn't thawed in 10,000 years. Second uncle. She spoke. Her voice was flat, betraying no emotion. You conspired with outsiders to seize the position of family head. According to family rules, the punishment is to have your cultivation crippled and be expelled from the family. But, in consideration of you being my elder, I will give you a dignified death. Take your own life. Her words made everyone suck in a cold breath of air. So ruthless, to actually force her own uncle to his death. Second Uncle Xiao was also stunned. He looked at Xiao Lingxi in disbelief. Lingxi, what are you saying? I'm your second uncle. From the moment you betrayed the family, you were not. There wasn't the slightest ripple in Xiao Lingxi's tone. Do it. Don't make me dirty my sword. You're mad. You've gone completely mad. Second Uncle Xiao retreated in terror. You treacherous, unfilial wretch. First Uncle Xiao, who stood beside him, could no longer bear to watch. Lingxi, that's enough. No matter what, he is still your second uncle. His crime doesn't warrant death. Not a crime punishable by death. Xiao Lingxi smiled. That smile was cold and distant. Uncle, have you forgotten? How Zhao Long humiliated me 3 days ago. Where were you then? Have you forgotten how you tried to persuade me to marry that beast? Why didn't you speak to me of family ties then? Now that I am strong, now that I can protect the family, you come to me talking of kinship. Don't you find that laughable? Her barrage of questions left the Xiao clan's eldest uncle speechless. His face flushed red, then turned pale. As for you, Xiao Lingxi's sword pointed at Zhao Tianxiong once more. I told you, the third path is for your Zhao clan to be wiped from Qingyang City. I do what I say. You dare. Zhao Tianxiong roared, his ferocity a thin veil for his fear. If you kill me, you make an enemy of the entire Zhao clan. The Zhao clan is not to be trifled with. Is that so? The corners of Xiao Lingxi's mouth curled into a bloodthirsty smile. I like to see just how much you're not to be trifled with. Before her voice had faded, a flash of sword light. A head flew high into the air. Blood gushed like a fountain, splashing across the ground. Zhao Tianxiong, patriarch of the Zhao clan, a foundation establishment expert, dead, without even time for a single scream. In the great hall, everyone was dumbfounded by the scene. No one had ever imagined that Xiao Lingxi would actually dare to strike. And it was so swift, so ruthless. With a thud, Zhao Long collapsed to the ground. A foul stench of urine came from his crotch. He had pissed himself in fear. He looked at his father's headless corpse, then at Xiao Lingxi, who stood like a she-demon, holding a blood-drenched longsword. He broke down. "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I was wrong, I was truly wrong." He knelt on the floor, kowtowing repeatedly as he wailed, tears and snot streaming down his face. Xiao Lingxi's gaze fell upon him. There wasn't a trace of pity in her eyes. "When you humiliated me, did you ever imagine this day would come?" Step by step, she walked toward Zhao Long. "No, stay away." Terrified out of his wits, Zhao Long scrambled backward on all fours. Second Uncle Xiao, watching the gruesome scene, felt his courage shatter. He suddenly burst into action, using his movement technique to flee from the hall. "Try to run?" Xiao Lingxi snorted coldly. Without even turning her head, she swung her sword in a backhand motion. A crescent-shaped arc of sword energy shot out from the blade. It was faster than Second Uncle Zhao's escape. With a wet slice, Second Uncle Zhao's body was sliced clean in two at the waist. His upper torso flew several meters before slamming heavily onto the floor. Intestines and viscera spilled out across the floor. He wasn't dead yet. His eyes were wide, staring at Xiao Lingxi. A gurgling sound escaped his lips. It was as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he breathed his last. The stench of blood filled the hall. It was nauseatingly thick. The people of the Xiao family looked at Xiao Lingxi, who was like a god of slaughter. Every one of them was as silent as a cicada in winter. Their eyes were filled with terror. They realized that the young miss before them was no longer the Xiao Lingxi they once knew. She had changed into someone they found unfamiliar and frightening. Xiao Lingxi had killed 2 people, yet her expression remained unchanged. She walked over to Zhao Long and looked down on him. "I will let you live," she said. Hearing her words, Zhao Long acted as if he'd just been thrown a lifeline, kowtowing frantically. "Thank you, young miss. Thank you, young miss, for your mercy. Go back and tell the rest of your Zhao family." Xiao Lingxi's voice was like something from the 9 hells. "Get out of Qingyang City within 3 days. Otherwise, not even the chickens and dogs will be spared." When she finished speaking, she turned and walked out of the main hall without giving Zhao Long another glance. As she walked past me, she paused. "Let's go. Back to the courtyard." Her voice held a trace of weariness. I nodded and followed her back to the small courtyard. Behind us, a deathly silence and the lingering stench of blood. Back in the courtyard, the first thing Xiao Lingxi did was rush into her room and close the door. I could hear the sound of suppressed retching from within. After all, it was the first time she had ever killed someone. And the one she had killed was her very own uncle. No matter how cold she acted, inwardly, she couldn't possibly be completely unmoved. I didn't disturb her. I walked over to the well in the courtyard and drew a bucket of water. Then, I picked up a cloth and began to wipe her long sword, which was covered in blood. The blood had already begun to congeal. I wiped it very carefully, very slowly, as if I were polishing a precious work of art. After a long time, the door opened. Xiao Lingxi walked out. Her face was still very pale, but her eyes had regained their calm. She saw me cleaning the sword and froze for a moment. "Give it to me. I'll do it myself." She came over, reaching for the sword. I didn't give it to her. "I'll do it." I wiped away the last trace of blood. The blade was once again as bright as new, radiating a biting cold. I returned the sword to her. "There." She took the sword, her fingers lightly caressing the cold blade. "Today. Thank you," she said in a low voice. I knew she wasn't thanking me for cleaning her sword, but for reminding her at the critical moment. "No need to thank me," I said. "I just didn't want you to become useless again." Her body stiffened. The word useless had stung her. She raised her head, looking at me. "In your eyes, was I just useless before?" "No." I shook my head. "You used to be a rose with thorns." She raised her head, looking at me. "In your eyes, was I just useless before?" "No." I shook my head. "You used to be a rose with thorns. And now." She pressed. "Now." I looked into her eyes and said word by word, "A sword that will hurt people She fell silent. Her hand on the sword hilt tightened unconsciously. Hurting people. Is that bad? She asked softly. In this world, if you don't hurt others, you'll just be hurt by them. Perhaps. I was non-committal. It's getting dark. I'll go make you dinner. I turned to go to the kitchen. Wait, she called out to me. Tonight, don't leave. What? I was a little surprised. I said tonight, you sleep in the room. Her voice was a little unnatural. The floor is too cold. I looked at her. She raised her head, looking at me. In your eyes, was I just useless before? No. I shook my head. You used to be a rose with thorns. And now? She pressed. Now. I looked into her eyes and said word by word. A sword that will hurt people. She fell silent. Her hand on the sword hilt tightened unconsciously. Hurting people. Is that bad? She asked softly. In this world, if you don't hurt others, you'll just be hurt by them. Perhaps. I was non-committal. It's getting dark. I'll go make you dinner. I turned to go to the kitchen. Wait, she called out to me. Tonight, don't leave. What? I was a little surprised. I said tonight, you sleep in the room. Her voice was a little unnatural. The floor is too cold. I looked at her. When she finished speaking, she averted her gaze, not daring to meet my eyes. A suspicious blush rose on her cheeks. I understood. She was scared. After killing someone, she didn't dare to be alone. She needed someone to be with her. And in the entire Shao family, the only one she could think of was me. The good-for-nothing she had once despised the most. I didn't refuse. All right, I nodded. That night, we shared a bed once again. Unlike last time, this time, she no longer deliberately kept her distance from me. She slept restlessly. Her body would always unconsciously lean toward me, as if there was something about me that could make her feel at ease. In the middle of the night, I was woken by the sound of whimpering. It was Xiaolingxi. She was having a nightmare. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat. Her body trembled under the covers. She kept crying out, "Don't come closer. Don't come closer." I sighed. I reached out and gently patted her back. My Hand was warm. Its warmth spread through her thin clothes to her skin. Her trembling eased. Her tightly furrowed brow slowly relaxed. Unconsciously, she turned over. Her whole body curled up in my arms, like a wounded kitten seeking shelter. Her face was pressed against my chest, breathing even and long. She was fast asleep. I looked down at her in my arms. When she slept, she lacked her daytime sharpness and coldness. Like an ordinary girl, her eyelashes were long, like two little brushes. The tip of her nose delicate and pert. I could smell the faint, fresh scent from her hair. My hand was still on her back. I could feel the softness of her body and her steady heartbeat. In the darkness, the corners of my mouth curled up silently. Very good. She was already beginning to depend on me physically. This was a good sign. Once a woman becomes dependent on a man, it won't be long before she falls completely. My plan was being executed perfectly, step by step. No one knew. This web was woven by my own hands. And she was the most perfect prey I had chosen, and also the most useful blade. The next day, Xiaolingxi woke up very early. The moment she opened her eyes, she found herself curled up entirely in my arms. The position was a little too intimate. Her face flushed red in an instant. As if she'd been electrocuted, she sprang from my arms. Startled awake by her, I opened my eyes and looked at her, feigning confusion. What's wrong? And nothing. She was a little incoherent, her gaze evasive. I'm getting up. She scrambled off the bed in a fluster, even putting her clothes on backwards. I leaned against the headboard, watching her fumble about. I found it rather amusing. The eldest miss of the Shao family, so ruthless and decisive, she would even kill her own uncle. To think she would lose her composure over a single hug. It seemed her heart was no longer as hard as she let on. From that day on, the atmosphere between us became somewhat delicate. She no longer made me sleep on the floor. She acquiesced to me having half the bed. Her tone with me was no longer one of command. Sometimes, she would even take the initiative to ask what I wanted to eat. The time she spent cultivating grew shorter. The time she spent in a daze grew longer. She would always stare at me as I worked. Her gaze was intent, as if studying some rare antique. One time, I was in the courtyard weaving a bamboo basket. She came over and squatted beside me. "What are you doing?" "Weaving a basket." "What for?" "To hold things." My replies were, as always, brief. She watched for a while, then also picked up a bamboo strip and began to weave, copying me. But she clearly had no talent for it. After fumbling for a long time, the strip would either snap or poke her hand. "This is so difficult." Discouraged, she tossed the bamboo strip aside. "I'll teach you," I said. I sat down behind her, taking her hands. Hand over hand, I taught her how to weave the bamboo strips. Our bodies were very close. I could smell her lovely scent. She, too, could feel the warmth radiating from my chest. Her body was a little stiff, her breathing a little unsteady, but she did not struggle. She let me half embrace her from behind. The courtyard was very quiet. There was only the sound of the bamboo strips weaving. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, falling upon us. Warm. In that moment, we were not like a husband and wife in name only. We were more like an ordinary young couple. Done. A delicate little bamboo basket had taken shape in her hands. She looked at the basket she had woven with her own hands, a childlike smile spreading across her face. So pure, so happy. I had not seen her smile like that in a long time. "It's for you," I said. She froze for a moment. "For me?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you made it." She took the small bamboo basket, turning it over and over in her hands. The corners of her lips were turned up. I knew she liked it. "Chun Yuan." She suddenly called my name. The corners of her lips were turned up. I knew she liked it. "Chun Yuan." She suddenly called my name. "You? What kind of person are you really?" She had finally asked the question that had been troubling her for so long. I raised my head and looked at her. "What kind of person do you think I am?" I asked in return. "I don't know." She shook her head. "I used to think you were useless, good for nothing. But now, I'm realizing I've never really known you at all. You can cook, you can weave, and you don't even bat an eye when facing the dead. It's like you know everything, but at the same time, you don't care about anything. You're a mystery, like a fog I can't see through." I smiled. "If you can't see through it, then don't look. Sometimes, knowing too much isn't a good thing." My words had a hidden meaning. She understood. Her face paled slightly. She thought of the system, the source of her power, and also her greatest shackle. She knew that this system, and I had to be connected. This was what she feared the most, and also what she most wanted to understand. That system. She hesitated, but finally spoke. "What exactly is it?"